Hey there, and welcome back to our lore playthrough of Elden Ring. Taking our time reading item descriptions, kind of experiencing it like it's our first time playing it, essentially. Hey, dog. Yeah, we're in Temple Agley right now. We're continuing our way through Volcano Manor. Now, this place, I didn't mention it before, but it gives me some really heavy, kind of like in Orlando vibes in Dark Souls 3 when you fight Pontiff Solvent. Like, that's just kind of the feeling this place gives me. A little bit more small scale, but it's just the same general feeling I get from it, right? Also, the architecture, as far as like, again, it's kind of old, right? It's super just like stone-like, which makes me think the Divine Towers, makes me think Ancient Dynasty stuff as well, right? It's just sort of what it seems like to me. Oh, what is that way over there? What's an item? But here we go, moving our way outside of the chapel, and we find ourselves circling around good old lava of the volcano. So I wonder, that must be the true, like, well, maybe. I was gonna say, maybe that's like the true caldera, because like it's settled so much lower than the rest. But at the same time, like this really feels like kind of like the true heart of it. Like it erupts from here and then it spills down this way and then it ends up, you know, laying there until eventually it starts hitting into the sea. Yeah, maybe, yeah, because look at this. This flows down, so that's definitely not called this right here. This is the true center of Volcano Manor and Mount Gelmir, right? Like, look at that. That's crazy, dude. And I mean, it definitely was not all like that before, because, like, how else are you going to build a manor up against the shores of a lava lake like this? Like, there's no way. Like, this had to have happened, like, post like the shattering, during the shattering, something along those lines. Oh, and look what it is. Eat a lightning. Bummer. We go, and what do we find? Let's see. Mother's small chamber here. Open it up. It's like a whole big pathway. That's the temple, right? So this would kind of circle around, see how it would go up, and it would connect here. So maybe in some way, right? Like you would come in through the main entrance. You'd have the main kind of like, I guess, hall. There's like a dining hall up high too, like where we fought the Inquisitor Giza. So maybe there's some other path where you would come along here. There's a temple, and then maybe you would kind of circle around to the guest hall. Again, it's, you know, me trying to apply some like real world like designs on this place that like function when it's just a game. Look at this disgusting spike chair. Awful. Absolutely awful. But over here, there's like there's a ladder and some other sections. We're gonna go down it because that's a pretty far drop. Okay, yeah, so there's stairs. So this definitely would have been some chamber. It takes you way down, but what is the point of it? Where is it supposed to take you? Albinarix? Okay, so prison cell. Alright. And we find ourselves Missionaries Cookbook 6. So is that all this place is supposed to be? Like you come down here and it's just like prison cells? Huh. Okay, so the missionary stuff. Oh, right, this is by somebody left by a man who was not able to become a finger maiden, who went on to become a missionary spreading holy teaching. I forgot there was like, that's the whole point of these things, was like, if some guy trying to be a finger maiden, but he couldn't because he was a dude, which is another thing I never really thought about, right? And also, look, yep, bird tree stuff. The finger maidens, I mean, they're maidens, right? There's not like, oh, here's a finger cleric dude, here's a finger guy. They're all women. They hold that role of interpreting the movements of the two fingers and spreading their teachings to the tarnished and guiding them on the path of being a lord. So why can't men do it? Well, there's a couple rules that also like have some importance on being female. Like, I mean, Queen Marika. I mean, Queen Marika herself is just like, there you go. Like, she is like the queen and god of the thing. The Dances of Dominula, they have an important role that's on the young maidens. They play the most important role. I want to say there is another one somewhere. Like, again, it focuses on like the female importance. the Carrion family. Also, this is a nice little secret path back here, shortcut. The Carrion family is the Carrion queen, the lunar princesses, right? Because, like, when you think about them, right, most of the children that we know of, right, because there were multiple princesses. We only really hear about one, however, with the secret door right there. But when you hear about Rykard and you hear about Radon, they're not called, like, Lunar Prince Radon, Lunar Prince Rykard, right? It's not ever implied at how they're going to inherit the Carrion throne or the academy or anything like that. It's literally just kind of like Ronnie. Like, she's the lunar princess. She's, like, the important one. So, again, it's that focus on the female aspect. Look at the snakes. They don't even care about the lava. Like, they're perfectly comfortable being in it. And, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, one, because the serpents are tied with Mount Gilmere, right? That's where the Great Serpent comes from. And then on top of that, we even hear Raya, when you first meet her, she's all like, hello, it's chilly here, isn't it? And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess so, maybe. But she's from a freaking volcano. She's a serpent who is, like, cold blood, I'm assuming. So, yeah, she would be cold there. And what do we got here? Stupid basilisks. And what were these things so fervently guarded? Oh, it's a material. For some reason, that reminded me. So the other interesting thing with the that missionary cookbook, what did it teach us what to do? It taught us how to do the holy proof dried liver, which increases our holy damage negation. Why would that be important? Is because Rykard is going against the Erdtree, which primarily does holy type things, right? So they would try and, like, guard against that. Though it is kind of interesting, right? You think holy, like the Erdtree, you think holy a lot of the time, right? Like, you're like, oh, the holy Erdtree, this and that. Little chamber, we'll go in a second. But there's not a lot of actual spells of the Erdtree. Like, Erdtree incantations don't actually, like, do any damage. The only one is the Wrath of Gold one, which is an Erdtree incantation. There's a second one I can think of too, and that's actually the Elden Stars one. Other than that, they're like healing, protection, kind of rejection type stuff, right? Where their actual, like, damaging spells are typically like the Golden Order discs and stuff. You get the lightning spells of the Dragon Cult, and it's sort of okay for them to do it because, after all, the lightning is gold, right? So it must be okay. So I do find that interesting, you know. But let's go in here, and what are we gonna find? There's Zaraya in a terrible little room.
Oh, it's you. I'm afraid there is something I must tell you. I was an unwanted child, born not of grace, but of a hideous ritual, something that can never be accepted. Not by men, nor serpents. Even Lady Tanith shouldn't accept me. I know that you have done so much for me, but I wish to ask one last kindness. Kill me, please. I thought that I feared nothing. But this, free me from this accursed frame.
So she's discovered the truth. Not born of some noble king, gruesome ritual. And she talks about how no one should accept her. Like, they're not accepted by men, not accepted by serpents. And I mean, to be fair, like, we don't actually see any true, like, serpents here. They're serpent men. But she is accepted by Tanith. She said Lady Tanith shouldn't accept me, but she does. She does accept her. She adopted her. She took care of her. And even when we talk to her, right, like, she expresses how we need to, like, make sure she's okay. Take care of the girl. Don't do any ill upon her, anything like that. But, you know, Raya isn't looking at it that way because she is distraught. She's caught in her emotions, and she doesn't see another way out. She doesn't want to accept this truth.
I know that you have done, but I wish to kill me. I thought that free me.
So she doesn't even like her form, which is awful. So now we can go. We should talk to Tanith again.
If you follow it cannot.
Zaraya's absence.
No, I haven't seen Zaraya.
Guess we could have asked her
anywhere.
earlier.
And she has no scouting duties now. Has she gone off in search of answers? Why won't she just listen?
Yeah, she's found her answers already.
May I ask your aid? Not as the manor's proprietress, but as Zarias' mother. If she discovers the answer to her question, and it causes distress, have her drink this potion to purge that which would cause her pain.
Tonic of Forgetfulness.
Yes, I know. My wish is a grave disrespect to her. No different than the Erd Tree's imposition. But I've no choice. It must be done. My wish is a grave, but I've no choice.
Right? Because she cares for her. She doesn't want, she saw the result of Zariah finding answers. She knew what it would do to her. And obviously she was pretty much right. She was extremely distraught by the answers she received, that she found. Now, immediately when I saw this tonic, it immediately makes me think of some of the Erd Tree flasks and stuff. And when you look at it, see, it kind of has this like sort of feathery like leaves and stuff on it. By looking close, can't really tell what that is on the center. I don't know. It's almost like flame-ish. Like a tonic in a small brass vial banishes distress and bitter memories. A gift bestowed by Rykard, sworn to blasphemy to Lady Tanith, who unfortunately had no use for it. My lord, there could be no greater distress than to forget you. So she got it from Rykard, and it having these like Erd Tree connections makes sense because he essentially served the Erd Tree. Everybody more or less did, you know, most people or most groups and whatever. So that kind of makes sense. And so the question is also like, why did he have it? Did he maybe concoct it, get it? Because who else did he have here at the manor? He had the perfumers, and so maybe they created this concoction, which would then of course guarantee why it looks like this, because the perfumers were Erd Tree followers. Even the depraved were at one point. But she gave it to Tanith because he cared for her, I guess, right? And when he started down this road for blasphemy, he's like, oh, she was upset by something, maybe like some kind of truth like we see with Zariah. And so he gave it to her saying like, here you go, it'll make you better. But Tanith didn't need it. She was like, I don't care. She's like, she cared entirely for Rykard, regardless of his path, I guess. So now we could go and we could give it to Zariah if we really wanted to. But we have two choices, right? We can follow Raya's wishes, kill her. We could give her the tonic of forgetfulness, which, like Tanith said, is kind of like a disrespect to her, because like it's basically we're removing her agency from it. Like she had her own will to go and find answers. She found the answers, and then when she got them, she didn't like what she had, so she's like, I would rather take this path. We're not like giving her the option saying like, well, you could do this too and just forget it. We would just be giving it to her.
I know that I will.
So like,
I thought
yeah.
me.
But there is also a third kind of option where we don't do anything, right? Don't give it to her. We don't kill her. We leave her be, right? Which in a way is kind of like a coward's way, because we are not making any choice. We're just like, I'm not making this decision, and then just noping out. But at the same time, to me, it kind of feels like a right answer for us, and even a reasonable answer for us to have, right? Because like, yeah, she's asking us to do this favor for her, to end it for her, but we are under no like requirement to do that. Like we don't have to do that, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing holding us to that thing. And so us saying no is okay, just like us saying no to give her the tonic is also okay, right? Because we also have our own agency, just like Zariah does, just like most people do. It's kind of interesting also, these commoners that we're taking out here, they all have like this poison stuff happening. So if we get a slow look at one of them here in a bit, we'll be able to really see it. But they just like explode with poison. It's like they're being experimented on in a way. The columns and stuff in here, in this room in particular, and a lot of this section, really make me think of like the Divine Towers and stuff. And in addition, you know, tying it into the DLC stuff really makes me think of some of the sections with like the Hornsent, Bellarat, Tower Settlement, and specifically Anira Elim, like the final section as well, because it has those stone columns carved with figures and stuff, and they also are very much the exact same thing as like the Divine Tower, so it all kind of goes together. especially when you look at like these, like look at those. It's a spiraling column. It's like interesting like carved designs to them. Which when we kind of go into that, when we think about like these curved designs and then the horn scent things, and we think about the Godskin Apostle being here, I needed to roll earlier. The Godskin Apostle or Godskin Noble, right? Man Serpent Ashes. How they take in, assimilate inhuman physiology, not unlike the Crucible of Life. Well, think about these statues of these snakes, right? They're snakes with all these other like aspects tied to them, like you know, the Crucible, aspects of the Crucible, wings, claws, serpent head, tails, you know, all these things. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe this stuff being old, this old pagan religion of the serpent, also goes with the Crucible, because the Crucible is an ancient thing as well. Now looking at this dude, he's got a giant thing on his head, a cape of sorts, a jeweled section around for a clasp. He's casting sorceries. Most of them are small pebbles, but he even does a large meteor-like one. Obviously, I don't have the staff on this character. But you could take some time to farm it, and we'll pull up the item description just so we can read it and know without me having to spend another, like, hour or something stupid trying to get the item. Look at this. So, and there's a fog wall over there. This looks very much like a throne room, because we have ourselves a large throne there, overarching thing, and a tapestry behind it as well. And if we go and we look at the tapestry, it's much like the rug that we see, the rugs across the whole place. A single line, kind of like spike, I don't know, I'd call it a spike, but a single line, and then a heelless design waving around it, a curse upon the Erd Tree, right? But it's with serpents. So he was like, oh, has that always been there? Did he always kind of hold this like disdain for the Erd Tree? It's interesting. It's hard to say. But this big serpent dude here too, he's supposedly, that thing on his head I think is supposed to be an eggshell, which is interesting. And I wonder if it's supposed to like emulate or imitate the wisdom of stone types of things, right? But the man serpent Ashes, spirit of a deformed man serpent that wields a whip of magma. It is said that long ago the elder serpent that dwelled on Mount Gilmere devoured a demigod, and the births of man serpents followed. Interesting. So the elder serpent devoured a demigod. Well, what demigod was here? Rykard, and he's often said to have like a serpentine demeanor. Over here, we get ourselves into a nice little balcony overlook thing. There's a transportation stone here. We're not going to take it right away. It looks out over this whole center. But look how close we are to the main, like, hall. Right? Pretty close. So it's almost like you could have, like, people come in, main hall, hang out, and then here is, like, the audience chamber. Like, they would come in to speak with the demigod, the master, the lord of Mount Gelmir, Praetor Rykard, which Praetor is a like Roman title or position. There's not like a good clear definition of what it's supposed to be. It's just kind of like a title or position rank. That's the word I'm looking for. It's kind of like a rank given to civilians so that they had kind of like a sort of military rank, something along those lines. And look, it would actually lead us along here. And what did we find at the end of all this? Oh no, sorry. This will lead us all along this way, eventually Prison Town Church. So here we have the Gelmir Glintstone Staff. That's the one that Man Serpent was using. It scales primarily with intelligence and faith, with some minor scaling in strength, whatever. A staff with a forked tip embedded with red glintstones enhances lava sorceries. The Man Serpents of Mount Gelmir draw from faith in addition to intelligence to enhance the potency of their sorcery. So the red-stoned tip is a lot like the Albric sets like we see, where these red glintstones come from sacrifices, right? Formed by the blood of sacrifices. But then as far as like it's scaling with intelligence and faith, also drawing from faith, because most sorceries, they're intelligence-based, right? The magma shot, right? A sorcery developed from the magma of Mount Gelmir. After discovering the ancient hexes of Gelmir, Rykard, son of Queen Renala, brought them back into practical use as new forms of sorcery. So it was a hex previously, something old that he discovered. So probably tied with that pagan religion with the serpent, of course, right? And then when he changed it, he adapted it for use, practical use, turning it into that sorcery. So sorceries are going to draw from that intelligence. But because it originated as this hex, the hex has probably the faith portion because it ties into that pagan religion of Mount Gelmir. It's not the only one that's like that. Rancor Call is a sorcery of the servants of death, summoning vengeful spirits. It was thought to be lost, and it was a death hex rediscovered by the necromancer Garrus. So again, another hex one rediscovered and then, probably adapted for use as a sorcery. Also, the magma blade. I want to talk about this too, because we also get the magma whip thing, candle whip that we get from patches. The magma blade can drop from some of them. It's very rare. I was spending a while trying to get it, and it still has not dropped for me. But it's a curved sword with a blade fashioned from the lava of Mount Gelmir, which is important because we know that magma, that lava, it doesn't ever cool. We know that from that shield. Armament of the man serpents, impossible for a human to have made. A lot like the Crystallian stuff, where it's impossible to have been crafted by human hands. Well, let's go this way, and what do we see? Oops, that's fine, sure. A huge chamber that probably should have extended all the way across, I would imagine, given how the boards look broken. And it was probably just converted into more torture chambers later on. Item over there we'll have to try and get. And especially when you consider how close this is to the main entrance. When you talk about the Inquisition and stuff, the torture of the nobles and stuff, how it's behind closed curtains or behind the curtain, you wouldn't want it this close if it's supposed to be kind of unknown. I think I can make that jump. It's not a normal path I take. Yeah. All right, what do we get from this? It's a big hallway. Chamber of sorts. Oh, man serpent. Okay. I see he's got the magma whip. But his isn't glowing orange, so it does seem like his actually cooled, which is a little contradictory to what we read. But I guess the fact that it still kind of flows and moves and stuff maybe also shows that, it hasn't completely cooled into a solid substance. There's an Erd Tree sign. There's the dagger talisman. It's an interesting one to get, right? Because of what's on it. All of these different talismans have different pictures of essentially, I guess you may say, people, classes and stuff across the lanes between. The curved sword talisman is the blind swordsman starting class you can get. This just looks like a footsman, a spear and soldier. This is one of the knights, a Godric knight. This is the Lanedale knight. But this one, what do we see? It's a dagger talisman with a hard stiletto-like thing, and it's got a masked figure with a robe. A talisman depicting a dagger and a surgeon enhances critical hits. The white-garbed field surgeons come to the aid of friend and foe alike by dealing a final deadly thrust to spare them from the prolonged agony of a mortal wound. A sense of mercy is a catalyst for bloodlust. So we know that was the white mask that we get from Vare, how they were field surgeons and they were often executioners on the battlefield, and that kind of goes with Submisericord, which was an exceptional weapon at critical hits and executing things. And of course, I don't have them on this character, so I can't just pull them up to read them to you, but it is that connection, a lot like how the Misericord warns us to beware those garbed in white, like the white surgeons in Vare. All right, looks to be about one final drop. You see lots of dudes down there, which is fine. You do this. Oh, it's too far away. That would have been amazing. Oh, I missed him. Oh, Jesus. This is going to be a problem. Roll. One of these. Just do another one. We're just going to keep lobbing them down. Keep everybody from getting close to us. Okay. Like a fireplace room. Something up ahead. Seedbed curse. So another one of those items for the Dung Eater. So even he was here. Was he imprisoned here as torture? Was he brought here as part of Inquisition before taken away to his jail in the capital? Or maybe it just he just found his way here and got a hold of somebody and then tortured him. It's not clear. It's honestly not important, but it's kind of fun to wonder, like, one way or the other, like, which way was it? God. Oh my god. Wow. Okay. Also, I would like to note, this one here, he has the extra throat portion going on, but he also had like jewelry type stuff all over his head, chains and like a medallion looking thing resting on the top of his head. A little interesting that that guy was a little different, but also his whip was still hot, like a liquid magma, as opposed to the cooled one that we see with some of the other ones. All right, jerk. I'm back. Let's go. Do one of these, followed by nice 4-stacks lightning. Boom. Boom. Roll. Oh, no. Recovery was too long. That's okay, maybe. And endure, followed by another one. Oh, not again. Okay. What was the whole point of this? I get something, like, not amazing. I had something like zone 7. It's okay, I guess. And look at that. So here we have another, like, kind of large room, chamber, Royal Knight's Resolve. Fairly significant painting. It's the same one we saw before in the dining chamber. But along with it is another portrait of Rykard. It was a chair that just stares at it. So maybe this is a section where Lady Tanith just kind of sits and admires him. But, I mean, looking at him, right? Different perspective, front on, right? Long curly hair, probably red, because Radon has red hair, right? You can't tell from this portrait, really. Crown of sorts. He looks probably he looks grumpy. He looks pretty grumpy, stern, right? Interesting medallion things that go across him. There's something else that has a bunch of, like, medallion-like things across that I can't think of. Yeah. Alright. But I imagine he was devoured by a serpent, right? Because that's, supposedly a demigod was devoured by an elder serpent in this place. And then that's when the man serpents showed up. Hey, Patches.
Well, I don't believe in here.
I guess I didn't talk to you at all. All right, yeah. So here we are. Loops us all the way back into this section. So maybe, again, kind of going back into, like, you know, trying to figure out, like, a real world layout for how this would actually be. But you got the main door, the main hall, right? You come in. Ooh, wow, fancy. This is nice. I imagine those tapestries would have been Erd Tree related before. You walk in, go up the steps, and it's like, okay, maybe you're hanging out for a while, so then you would go all the way through here and actually hang out in, like, this main section and go to the drawing room and stuff. Or maybe you're just here for a sort of like an audience, so you go down here where you find, like, a sort of minor meeting room. And then from there, what should probably happen is there's a straight shot or thoroughfare that brings you all the way back up to that main, like, throne room. Even though Rykard's not an actual, like, king of sorts, he is still a demigod and rules over this section, so he is very important. Alright, so we have completed the last job for Volcano Manor now. On my other character, I had already done it at this point, but it does kind of make a difference a little bit.
The path of champions. This is your usual reward. Please, take it.
Taker's Cameo.
Perhaps you are ready. Might you see our Lord? Our Lord will no doubt welcome you. Another kindred spirit, treading the path of champions.
Don't see the Lord.
I see. Well, I cannot make you take the leap, but do know this. To follow the path of valor, an audience with our Lord is essential in order to defy this debasement and rise up against the Erd Tree, like a true recusant of the Volcano Manor.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? We have not seen right? Like, where is he? Where's Rykard? We've explored all throughout here. Like, there's nowhere else left for us to go. The one thing we didn't do was that waystone, that travel stone that we didn't take. But he's not here in some meeting rooms. He's not in the church, the temple. He's not at that throne room. Where's Rykard at? But she's all like, yeah, go see him. You know, you've stayed the path of champions. True valor. Go see him. You, like, take the leap. Like, it's a very big step.
Ah, I have the reward. Take it.
Oh, guess I never collected my reward from him. So Gelmir's Fury, right? Another sorcery developed from the magma. It's held to represent the fury of the volcano, but the arrogance of attempting to harness it is solely that of men and serpents. So it's like the volcano itself is separate from the serpents, because a lot of times it seems like we just kind of tie them together. Like the serpents are of the volcano and stuff, like because they live in the magma, and you know, it's just like that's a religion there and stuff. But it's the arrogance of men and serpents to think they can harness it. So it's like the serpents came there and doing the same thing as man, thinking they can, like, I can wield the power of magma, but the volcano is beyond simply that. Then we also have the Taker's Cameo. It's exactly like, I wouldn't say exactly, it's very much like that photo in that room, right? The main room. Interesting design on it, but we'll talk about that in a second. A talisman engraved with the stern likeness of Praetor Rykard, master of Volcano Manor, restores HP upon defeating enemies. When Rykard turned to heresy, taking by force became the rule. The gods themselves were no different after all, which, I mean, yes, it makes sense, because that's kind of what they do, right? They just run and conquer over the lands and say, you now fall under the Golden Order. There is no other path. It's just ours. And so he's following by example, right? Like he's doing what they do, only it's not okay. But I was going to say the picture is interesting, right? On here, I mean, you got the picture of Rykard, but the right side is like a, it's got two serpents coming together around almost, it makes me think candelabra-y thing, but if you look at the Gelmir, I don't have the cape. Let's get the cape on there. All right, so there's a symbol on the cape. This is a Gelmir Knight set, so it's kind of like, I don't know what you would call that, right? I could see that single staked line, kind of like we see on the tapestry thing behind Rykard's throne room area, but it's got these double branching things coming off of it, and so it does, the symbol on the right does kind of make me think of that. Like it is similar in some fashion. It also reminds me of stuff with, again, DLC things. Kind of reminds me of the Inquisitors of the Hornsent Inquisitors, how they have the golden barbs, and it's like this line was like kind of like rune arc looking arc shapes going up there, and how there's something of the Golden Order in it, right? But then you get the left side, and it looks almost like skeletal, like a skeletal figure in the center there, maybe holding something, and then grasping hands at it. And the whole thing is actually has like blood on it, which is ominous, right? But at this rate, there's not much left for us to do outside of taking the offer and going to see their lord.
Won't you consider having an audience with our lord? Our lord will no doubt... Yes. As it should be. Now, close your eyes for a moment. I will transport you to the Lord's chamber. Farewell, then.
I'm coming back.
May your visit be fruitful.
The whole farewell then feels very permanent, right? Like, why would you say that? And then look at this. We're not in some, like, chamber. Like, we're in a freaking hole, right? A cave. It is dark. It's silent. Immediate, like, you know, summoning pool and stuff around here. Yeah, it doesn't look super, great, does it? I don't have the axe talisman. Interesting. Look at this place. Massive chamber, and we're actually located audience pathway. So maybe there was some path that would like originally have taken us here, maybe, because some of this structure, I mean, one, there's like chandelier like things, right? Like dangling down, chains, twisting, twisting columns that look like they had some kind of carvings to them, but they're like encrusted with bodies. Now, again, tying it to DLC, this is a lot like Anir Elim. Yeah, and I mean, look at that right there. It looks like a fist, right? You can see like the fingers coming up, how it would almost be like this in a way. But you can see on the side there at the bottom, even in that second one, right? When you got 1, 2, 3, 4, a bunch of the sides have like what to be wounds and stuff on it, like it's cut open. Rising mass, and it's in like magma. What is this? Like a commoner dude? Like he's holding it up. The Serpent Hunter. So the Serpent Hunter, we had that ghost in the hallway, a knight of Gelmir, right? Who basically said to find the serpent, slay that monster. He's no longer their lord. It's a weapon that serves as both great sword and spear, thought to have been used to hunt an immortal great serpent in the distant past. It manifests as a long blade of light when facing such a creature. When their master's heroic aspirations degenerated into mere greed, his men searched for a weapon with which they might halt their lord. The unique skill Great Serpent Hunt, you do a powerful lunge, upwards thrust via additional input. When fighting a great serpent, a long blade of light will appear, revealing the armament's true power. I wish I'd actually thought to try this on Mesmer. Yeah, but look at the design. It's hard to see from here. Maybe if I get some extra light here. There's like a twist heelless kind of design on there. Again, like, you know, DLC wise, it ties it a lot with like some of the Hornsent ideas and things, right? A octagon shape on the bottom, 8 sides. I think that's kind of the same amount in the Divine Towers, but don't quote me on that. I could see where it would be like a sword-like thing. But the Blade of Light, too, also ties with a number of items that use light as a thing. Like the, there's like the colossal ruined greatsword thing. Not the gravity one. There's a different one, again, in the DLC that does the light aspect things. And also some kind of like ancient weapon type. It's coming from an ancient arrowhead. I wonder if these have like similar origins coming from some older time before the Erd Tree, when they would do battle against this like great serpent and wield light to defeat it. But here we go. And I mean, when they think about serpents and like greed, I mean, the closed fist and like holding, grasping something really does kind of make me think that like greed, like holding things. God devouring serpent. Look, it's got arms thrusting out of it. And I mean, oh my, why do I not remember ever seeing anything like that? Holy cow. But we think about like with the, oh, that's unfortunate. The god skins, right? How they assimilate inhuman physiology. Maybe this is sort of like a reverse, where you've got this great serpent. If it devoured a demigod, it is now taking on aspects of a kind of like, dude, I'm getting grabbed all over the place. It's taking on aspects of the demigod, right? It's got arms. And as far as like degenerating into greed and stuff, I mean, that's, god damn it. Oh, I'm a heavy load. That's a problem. That explains a little bit. You know, it explains like a number of the things as far as like what various like ghosts and things have said, how, you know, they were like, oh yeah, we're with you, Rykard, and your resistance to the Erd Tree with the shattering and stuff. Except at a certain point, it was no longer like, they were like, oh no, this is not okay, actually. You see, it was a ghost. You see, it was the knights. Like, they no longer wear their armor. There are no knights of Gelmir left because of what he's been doing. And perhaps letting himself be devoured by this serpent. There we go. I would like to heal. I don't like being in this wall, please. Thank you. Drink this now. Killed it, except now we didn't for sure, right? Look at the arms coming out of the wounds, the little arms. And that bit on the top is like a crown.
Very well.
All the rings on those arms makes me think of the finger crawlers and how many rings they have on some of them anyways. He also has like 6 or 7 fingers.
Join myself and King as family. Together we will devour the very god.
Okay, so he wants us to join him to devour the gods. We are not gonna quite just like give into that, right? One, oh, getting a little too close there. Fully charged. Another one. Nice. Lots of damage there. But that is the holy sword that we see him wielding in the portrait, right? That's a picture that he had, or that's a weapon that he's holding in his thing. But look how it's like corrupted and coated in these other like bodies and stuff. So, you know, like Tanith wants us to do, like we've been staying true to the path of champions, and then we can seek the audience. And what are we met with? We're met with this great serpent that tries to kill us, and then even after we kill it, Rykard wakes up, and he too is like, yeah, just come join us, like become family, and we'll devour the gods. Look how above us there's like a storm cloud settling in. Oh, good lord. And so what is that? Like, what is happening? It's like as the fight goes on, it gets worse and worse. He even actually has his legs, which is interesting. Let's hit him again, keep staggering him. Oh, I kind of want to hold off on completely winning because there are some interesting things to be seen in this fight. I don't want to be in the lava though, so we're gonna try and circumvent a little bit of it. Get up, please, heal. And now we hear that sound effect, right? Look how it's now the flame in red is surging. We'd seen it too when he drew the sword, how it like body parts like fell into the lava. And now we see these skulls, which are a lot like the Rancor call spell, summoning vengeful spirits that seek out foes. Actually, an item right here too. Eye Circo. And look how they're haunting us. So they're like, I imagine, right, if he's been devouring champions that will stay the path with him to devour the gods and everything, these are the vengeful spirits of those champions. And he's now conjuring them up to destroy us. And look at that lava attack. And they go and they explode. So now they've completely settled down. And we're back to just fighting him regular, like, huh? Let's hit him from pretty far away. Look at how that big blade of light charges up like that. Huge amount of damage. One more should do the trick. Oh, didn't. One more. Oh, he still got me. That's all right. We can finish him with a heavy. There it is. Down he goes. Rykard's Great Rune, Remembrance of the Blasphemous. Interesting. So even as we defeated him, he basically implies that, like, yeah, you didn't really win, though. Like, it's not over. A serpent never dies. You're not going to hold me prisoner. I'm free no matter what. Like, he's far beyond that. Far, far beyond that. And exists in some other way that, like, we simply don't. Let's go talk to Tanith real quick. We're going to do all that before we, like, read all the items that we're getting. I want to kind of, like, get all the action stuff done before we start reading all of the things. Hey, you've got some explaining to do.
You.
Yeah.
It's true then. You've defeated our lord.
Yeah, you upset?
No. I must thank you. Our lord was yet weak. You have taught us that. Defeat is not the end. Our lord is immortal, and will one day rise again. Stronger. Until then, I must stay the path and do my part.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I will leave the Volcano Manor before long. I suggest you do the same. I will miss these encounters. The champion who walks the tainted path shines all the more. I always was an admirer.
Oh, thanks.
This is perhaps we will meet again along the path.
It's interesting, like, she doesn't actually hold us, like, really any ill will. She's just like, oh, well, shoot. Like, the rule was the strong take, like, it's take by might, strength by might. And at the end, she was like, yeah, you kept to that rule. Like, she's not upset at us. And especially because, like, she holds the belief that our Lord is immortal. Like, it doesn't even matter because he's going to come back anyways.
Now you've gone and killed Rykard.
Yeah.
You scheming little doxy. Cripes, you make this nonsense seem, well, less nonsensical. Perhaps a Tarnished will be Elden Lord after all. But for now, this manor is finished. The demigod beast is slain, and Tanith has lost her head. A fine mess. But how else could it end? When Daddy Ambition's head over heels courting Lady Blasphemy.
Yeah, right?
Well, here I am, untethered, once again. Goodbye, my friend.
All right. Now we'll talk to Bernal. See if he has anything to say. And that's where our ghost friend is. And what will we get from that? My thanks. Yep, for defeating his lord and the blasphemous creature he became of depravity.
So, you killed Rykard. I harbor you no ill will. The strong take.
He's got the same idea.
Such is our code. Even he was prepared to meet a wretched end when he first took blasphemy unto his very flesh. But any road, the Volcano Manor is no more. Though we may yet fulfill an old promise. We hunted our own kind and took what was theirs. And with everything in hand, the time has come to rise against the Erd Tree.
Alright, so he's saying now is the time. And again, no ill will, because we still stuck to the code of their whole manor, their group. An old promise, though.
O greater will, hear my voice. I am the recusant Bernal, inheritor of my brother's will, and you will fall to my blade. We refuse to become your pawns. Consider this fair warning.
Alright, so he has... That whole thing he says there at the end is so interesting, right? Because he's like... He's talking to the greater will. He holds a lot of ill will towards it. Refuses to be their pawn, because like that is kind of what it seems like, right? Like they, with the two fingers being their vassals, the two fingers choose who's going to be the new, you know, god, new order and stuff like that, and ultimately kind of like trickles down onto everybody. And then by extension with like the Tarnished, because that's ultimately what Bernal is or was tarnished, is, you know, the two fingers again were like, hey, you're going to go do this thing. You don't really have a choice. Like, this is what you're supposed to do, right? And so he bucks against it. But the most interesting part to me is like inheritor of his brother's will. And so the question is like, who is his brother, right? And I mean, just given what we just did, it makes me think of that it's Rykard. Like he's somehow related to Rykard, like it's his brother. But at the same time, like that would make him some kind of demigod, right? Equivalent to Radon and Rykard, but he's not. So I have a hard time believing that's the case. And so I wonder, like, is it just some other nameless brother that we don't know? And so this is just some like sort of open backstory about like why he's doing what he's doing. Is he admired his brother? And so when his brother died, he just decided to inherit his will in, you know, his own wants and desires out of respect to him, or what?
O greater will, I am the recusant Bernal. We refuse to become...
He does have the serpent hammer thing too, so yeah, it's interesting. But if we come back here and we end up resting and stuff, everybody should be gone. Yep. No more Lady Tanith. No more Patches. No more Bernal. But we should probably go back and talk to Zariah. We've waited a while, right? We basically made our decision of not doing anything. We leave it up to her. Like, we're not going to just, like, do the thing for her. We're not going to take away her agency with the potion. We're not going to fulfill her request and just, like, end it for her. I mean, unfortunately, I'm kind of, like, different circumstances, I would, you know, entertain that idea a little bit more. But given her state, like, I'm of the belief she could, like, find a way through it, you know? Like, an acceptance of sorts, right?
You're not willing to kill me, are you?
No.
You've always been so kind and uncompromising.
So now we could give her the tonic. Okay, no, don't give it.
I suppose I knew in my heart of hearts how kind.
Okay. Well, now we gotta rest and come back again to see if we can get it to move another step forward. I guess maybe if I had kept talking to her earlier, it would have, like, pushed the conversation. Sometimes that's so hard to tell, because I feel like I did talk to her a bunch and nothing changed. And I don't know. What do I know? And now she's gone. We've got Zariah's letter and Didakar's woe. Farewell written, a farewell letter written in an inexpert hand. I wish to set out on a journey, so that one day I can carry on Mother's work, be the proud daughter of Tanith of Volcano Manor. Farewell, you've always been so kind, so uncompromising, my champion. Unfortunately, we've kind of ruined the Volcano Manor, so I don't know that she'll get much, like, help out of there. But Didakar's woe. Disturbing likeness of a woman whose skin was flayed. She smiles with a serene tenderness. Increases damage taken. It is said that this woman named Didakar indulged in every form of adultery and wicked pleasures imaginable, giving birth to a myriad of grotesque children. So, I feel the implication here is that this was the mother of the man serpents, right? But it also seems to say that, like, giving birth to a myriad of grotesque children, it makes me think, like, maybe she was, like, the source of even, like, the bat-like people, right? Because a lot of them, like, especially the, like, old woman-like ones, they have a human-like features to them. So it makes me think that maybe that's kind of where they originate as well. It has similarities with Shabriri's woe as well, right? They're both woe icons, disturbing likeness, right? And they were both somehow, like, tortured. Her skin was flayed, his eyes gouged out, right? So, like, did they both happen here at the Volcano Manor? But the interesting thing, this one's got, like, his smile is, like, almost flirtatious manner, but hers is done with, like, a serene tenderness, even though it makes you take more damage, right? And so, I don't know, it's interesting to me in a way. And I wonder, because it says she, you know, she indulged. So it feels almost like it was a willing participation and not like she was forced into the ritual, huh? However, traveling back to the audience chamber with Rykard, we find his head is there. Nasty is still writhing and moving, like little serpent tongues and arms with scaled flesh. And half of his face. And there's Lady Tanith.
Oh, you allow me some time. Our lord's carcass is vast and not easily consumed. Dear Rykard, please find purchase within me. I wish to be your serpent, your family. One day, let us devour the gods together.
Yeah, she's eating him because she wants him to, you know, find purchase within her. And I mean, that's a recurring thing across many deals, especially those that involve the you know, great runes or mending runes, how they want things to find purchase within them in order to create something else. And so she wants him to find a purchase within her so that she can be his serpent. I am assuming so that he can be like reborn through her in some fashion and then continue on to devour the gods.
I wish to be one day.
Now from here, all right, there's a few things. This next part, I don't know exactly how you would like figure it out. I guess I never beat this guy, but I don't know how you would figure this out without like knowing about it. I guess just sheer super dumb luck you could figure this out. But you come back here to the Shaded Castle, which has a large amount of tie-ins with Volcano Manor, simply just from like the appearance and stuff, maybe with Lady Tanith wearing the masks because the family of the House Mirais has those masks that they wear. But if we end up going through here, we're going to find something interesting towards the end. Taking the elevator all the way up in the Shaded Castle. Oh, I did defeat him. I just didn't pick up the Side of Grace. We find ourselves Patches.
Oh, you again. A shame you had to see me like this. Oh, I had a bit of a slip-up, that's all. I should have stuck to what I know best. No matter. I know I can trust you. Gullible, yes, but a good soul. Make certain that Tanith gets this.
Dancers, castanets.
Oh, it's nothing, it's just... makes me sick to see her all bent out of shape. Come on, Tanith, back on your high horse where you belong. You're able then? Then I can rest easy, my friend.
This kind of lines up because like he previously had mentioned how he had never met a woman like her before. So he came here to get something specific. He got the dancers castanets. Something that to give to her that'll do something. Castanets used by dancers from foreign lands, received from Patches. The passionate dance comprises no seductiveness, but merely a dignified beauty. And now Patches is gone. And at this point, if you hadn't done the castle, you would go forward and you would fight the Elmer of the Briar. Oh, did I have the Side of Grace and I'm just an idiot? All right. Oh, man, I couldn't see it over that one. Interesting. All right. So now we go back and we can try to give her this and see if it changes anything. And I have a lot of thoughts and things that we can share about Tanith with the dancers, castanets, and stuff and whatnot. Again, tying with like DLC things as well. Give her the castanets.
What is it? I have no need of that. I must continue devouring my beloved lord.
There's not enough.
Oh, you allow me some. Our lord's.
So she's not budging. She's not willing to stop. Now we could just leave her be. And as far as I know, nothing changes. Like it's always going to be like this for the rest of ever. But if you notice, there is no peace thing here. Like we can totally get rid of her, and she fades out on a single hit.
Rykard.
And then what happens? Invaded by Tanith's Knight. There he is. Crucible Knight. He's doing the Ordovis Slam. We're going to hit him with some lightning. Decent damage there. 1, 2. There we go. Thrust or no? Here comes phase 2. Do one of these, and maybe we'll be okay. He went way too far away. Let's try it again. Because the Death Lightning can do a lot of damage. If you know, I cast the thing because I decided I wanted to fully charge it all the way up. Look at that. Big throat. He does a flame thing. We've seen that a couple times before from some of the Crucible Knights. Golden Wings. Overall, nothing too different, significant about this guy, right? Aspects of the Crucible breath. I mean, the question is kind of like, why was he serving Tanith? Was he infatuated in some way? Maybe it was through some like demigod association. There's all the consorts gear. And so, you know, who can say? At this point, now we can go to the table of Lost Grace, and we'll start going through all the items and descriptions. So first up, we'll read the Remembrance of the Blasphemous. Remembrance of Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, hewn into the Erd Tree. Rykard took the form of a giant serpent that he might devour, grow, and live eternally. I understand. The road of blasphemy is long and perilous. One cannot walk it unprepared to sin. So he knew he had this like, end goal, right? Of like bringing down the Erd Tree, ultimately, and I'm assuming the greater will by extension in some way, right? And so in order to achieve it, he took the form of a giant serpent so that he could devour, grow, and then just live eternally, right? And so he was prepared to do anything it took in order to walk that path. But first we have the Blasphemous Blade, a sacred sword of Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. The remains of countless heroes he has devoured writhe upon the surface of this blade. Now they share the same blood, bound together as family. Some HP is restored upon defeating an enemy, much like the Taker's Cameo, right? It raises skill is Taker's Flames. You raise the sacred sword aloft, setting it ablaze with blasphemous flames, and bring it down to fire off a forward blast. They steal HP from those they touch. So this would have been a sacred holy sword. Some kind of like, I mean, look at it, it's golden, right? Definitely would have had ties to the Erd Tree, but in his actions, he has turned it into a blasphemous blade with the remains of the heroes he devoured. I mean, it was within himself, like he devoured the sword himself, right? And it wields the flames and magma of the serpent of Mount Gelmir. And the flames are also rather important too, because the flames are like part of a whole prophecy of burning down the Erd Tree. Though with Melina, she talks about how, and like some of the others, the only thing that's going to do it is the Giant's Flame, the Flame of Ruin. Not necessarily the Gelmir's Flame, right? But we'll talk a little bit on that in a minute. Rykard's Rancor. Terrible power of Rykard, the Lord of Blasphemy. It summons searing spirits that leave a trail of delayed explosions in their wake. These spirits manifest from the rancor of heroes who met a violent end. The Lord granted them an audience, whereupon they were welcomed by the maw of the great serpent, and within the serpent's bowels they became the Lord's kin. So it's the exact fate that we were about to face, right? And I wonder, Bernarl seems like he's done a lot, right? But he hasn't gone to meet the Lord and be devoured and become one with the family, right? So has he simply refused to do it? Does he know that's what's going to happen? Or is it because he is actually Rykard's brother in some fashion? So, no, and maybe when he says brother, maybe it's a figurative brother. It's not like a literal blood brother. It's a like brother in part of the family of Volcano Manor, brother in arms, right? But yeah, just like we saw, and just like we see with the rancor spirits and the like death hexes and stuff, it summons vengeful spirits, angry spirits that then go forth to, you know, seek out other people. And it feels a lot like the Erd Tree and stuff sort of prevents that from happening, because in the Erd Tree burials and stuff, it's like the body and soul returns to the Erd Tree where they can be reborn and stuff. But a lot of these other things, the spirit is left to be conjured up or left to wander in some fashion, right? We'd also found that armor piece in Volcano in the audience hall, the eye surcoat. It's a brown surcoat draped over chainmail. The insignia emblazoned marks out the wearer as eyes and ears of Sir Gideon, the all-knowing. Now, there's recusant Henricus way back early on in the whole playthrough of the game when we're outside the gladiator arena of Lemgrave. This guy invades us and he's a recusant. He also uses a Volcano Ash of War, and he's wearing this exact set. So it's like Gideon sent off an eye and ear to Volcano Manor to spy on it. Now, whether he was still actually loyal to Gideon or not, it's unclear. We don't know. He might have still been, and he just got too close and ultimately met his demise at the maw of the Great Serpent. Or maybe he went native. Maybe he got there and then he sort of, you know, drank too much of the Kool-Aid, and that's why he stayed and he ended up getting devoured. You know, it's hard. Again, nothing that says one way or the other. Now we look at the consort's mask, right? Mask worn by Tanith, Lady of Volcano Manor, in the image of a foreign queen. Long ago, when Rykard first set eyes on Tanith, she was working as a dancer in a foreign land. Soon, he made her his escort, or consort. She was the only human to remain by his side when he became the Serpent of Blasphemy. In that moment, Tanith was truly charmed by him. So how there was that tonic of forgetfulness, and he gave it to her when he became the Serpent of Blasphemy, and he planned to be devoured and stuff. That's probably when he gave it to her, because he was like, all right, you're not going to want to see this. Like, he was captivated by her, right? That's why he made her his consort. And so he probably did care about her, and he's like, I don't want this to disturb you. And so he gave her that. But that's, like, she probably didn't even really care about him. It was just a demigod that was interested in her, and she likely didn't have too much of a choice in whether or not she was made his consort. But when he made that choice of becoming the serpent, that's when she was truly charmed by him. And that's why she was so, like, obsessed with, like, devouring him, because that's where she was really interested in him, because he wasn't staying the path of the Erd Tree, he was taking his own road. And here's a consort's robe. Fine silk worn by Tanith, Lady of Volcano Manor. The same thing to tell us as well. Now, to activate Rykard's Great Rune, we go to the Divine Tower of West Altus. This is one that we had to actually take a traveling gate over here at the Divine Bridge and Tower of Return. And here it takes us to this. Now, see how these, like, the way these carvings and stuff are? It is very reminiscent of the carvings on those columns inside, like, Rykard's, like, audience chamber, where, you know, he has that throne and stuff, right? Like, it's very fitting. And there it is. Off to the side, straight line in that circle. And the edges of it are interesting because they've got kind of like a curved, curling, wavy, almost like serpentine kind of shape to them, right? Which is totally done on purpose. And it is interesting because it seems like each of these great runes basically takes on aspects of their wielder, their owner, because I can't imagine that's what they were like before, right? Because if we go through and we look at each of them, right? This is one by Godric. See how it's got that yellow golden thing? It does, I mean, maybe the green it's got green in there. Maybe it's to kind of be that, like, kind of sickly nature, but it's a gold to go with the golden lineage. Rykard's has a burning seas, almost like little embers and stuff. Same thing with Radahn's. It's got kind of a flamish look, but you can see where it looks as though it's almost by eaten with kind of scarlet rot, the, like, kind of like hold looking sections to it. Morgoth's is kind of like Godric's in the fashion, because it's just kind of a yellowy golden color to it, but you can see there's edges of like a red almost blood to it. And then Mohg's is very much that vivid red blood, the blood flame of the formless mother. And this one is kind of different and unique in a way, because it's sort of like a pure-ish gold in a way, with a singular line or needle that goes through part of it, but it doesn't pierce all the way through. Like this one goes all the way through, and it's the opposite side all the way through, also the left side, center. This one doesn't go all the way through, but it fills in the center of this one. So it's all just kind of interesting. But Rykard's Great Rune restores HP upon defeating enemies. Rykard was amongst the children of Rennala and Radagon, who became demigod stepchildren after Radagon's union with Queen Marika. But Rykard fed himself to the blasphemous serpent, Great Rune and all. So he had the Great Rune and then let himself be fed to the serpent. And so, like, some of the timeline stuff is a little unclear, and I might have this a little wrong, but my understanding of how some of it went, right, is when the Elden Ring was shattered, you know, the pieces flew out, and that's when the demigods collected them, and with their newfound mad strength, you know, it triggered the shattering, which was, you know, a long series of wars. And one of the things I made a mistake with before, and, you know, the DLC kind of, like, had me shift mindsets a little bit. In my head, a lot of these events were very kind of like quick, right? But the reality is a lot of them took a very, very long time, right? And so the overall shattering process itself, between the Elden Ring being shattered and then eventually all the, like, complete collapse of the lanes between, took a long time. It didn't just immediately occur, right? And so when the ring was shattered and they collected the Great Runes, that's when Rykard would have started setting on this path of blasphemy, where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna devour, you know, not devour, but I'm going against the Erd Tree. That was the original blasphemy. It was just to go against the Erdtree, and people were behind it because not everyone is going to be completely with the Erdtree. They're just do because it's the rule by might. That's how it operated. That's why he took that rule himself. But then, as you see with many of the followers and ghosts that talk about him, his original road of blasphemy led to gluttony and depravity. He let himself be devoured by the serpent, and that's when things started to go wrong for him, for his followers and stuff. But now, I kind of want to talk about, and this is going to be long, kind of weird rantish thing, so if you're good, I appreciate you guys checking out the video. You can skip to me saying goodbye if you want. But, why does Rykard do what he did? Why did he take the road of blasphemy? And there's a few reasons I can think of why that is, right? The first is he could have simply been just a jerk. He was greedy and, kind of depraved, and was just always from the get-go, that was his manner, that was his personality. And regardless of whatever kind of happened later on in the whole timeline, he probably would have moved towards that direction just because that's how he was. But I don't necessarily think that is the case. Kitty cat, I'm very warm right now. I don't need you on me right now. Can you say goodbye? Say goodbye, kitty. Yum, yum, yum. So my next thought then is, right, I mentioned it before. I think I did in the previous one. I don't think it was this video because I recorded them back to back. But when we think about Rykard and Radahn, yes, they're associated with Sicarian royal family, but they're not called the princes or anything like that. It's Lunar Princess Ranni. She's the Lunar Princess. They are not the Lunar Princes. Radahn is not Lunar Prince. Rykard is not Lunar Prince. It's Praetor Rykard. It's General Radahn. They have these other roles that they're known by and for. Their other accomplishments, which even then, Rykard doesn't really seem to have any other accomplishments. Radahn is the Star Scourge, held the stars in check. He's, the Red Lion of the battlefield. He follows and is inspired by Godfrey, right? What does Rykard do? You don't hear anything. He is the head of Volcano Manor, and that's it. And then what's behind the curtain of Volcano Manor is Inquisition, torture, So I have some thoughts where maybe, and the other thing is too, he is what paths are left for him to do, right? He's not going to be the king of the Carian family because they take queens. So then where could he do? He could be the head of the Academy of Raya Lucaria, except his mother is the head of the Academy until, Radagon leaves, at which point she's deposed by, the sorcerers, and they likely aren't going to accept him anymore, right? So him being the head of the Academy is not really a realistic thing as well. And so where does that leave him from there? Well, is he going to be the consort for America? That's not an avenue that's open either, because guess what? His father becomes Lord Consort to Queen America. So he's all these high upper options for him dwindle down and down and down. And even there's echoing words of America that talk about her demigod children and how, he is an adoptive, by extension, in that marriage, a demigod children, which, I mean, given the stuff we've read and saw that talks about how Radagon is America, who's to say where that line is really at? But she tells him, make something of yourselves, whatever it happens to be, God, it doesn't matter, but if you don't do anything with it, you're only fit to be sacrifices. So he, what is he even doing, right? He doesn't have a lot of roles left. Instead, he gets his position probably just given to him by the Erdtree, by America, by the Golden Order, whoever it is, and it's you are now the head of the Volcano Manor, and that is his role. And it's probably not just to be in that area, but also to do the Inquisition. And from there, why did they put him there? And I think it's kind of for two reasons. One is maybe for that Inquisition aspect of it, where they're taking in the nobles and stuff, looking for dissension and heretics among the ranks, maybe things like Shibriri, right, Didakar, stuff like that. So maybe that was the first role. But then the second role is what's at the manor? What's at Mount Gelmir? It's the serpent deity of the mountain. Agle is maybe his name, who knows, right? So maybe they put him there for those two purposes. One, to serve as the praetor and deal with these inquisitions and stuff. And then the second, to keep an eye on Mount Gelmir and the blasphemous serpent, right? So maybe that was like a twin role they had given him. And so from there, we get into like why he ends up taking the road of blasphemy. And like I said, the first idea is simply that he was just a jerk and he was ultimately going to go down that road no matter what. I don't really like that idea. Instead, I kind of liked where I was going with all these other descriptions, where ultimately he's left with nothing to do, right? He has no higher purpose that he can go with, and so he bucks against the Erdtree. He doesn't like it, right? And so he goes and he rebels against it and takes that road of blasphemy, right? Which then eventually leads him to the Great Serpent. Now, there's another kind of option that goes along with that, and that's like maybe he didn't necessarily have the thought in his head originally, but because he was there at Mount Gelmir where this Great Serpent, this blasphemous serpent is at, maybe he was influenced by it. He was whispered and seduced, and that led him down the path, right? And that's why he ultimately ends up doing it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about has to do with information that we get from the DLC, new things that we have for that, and it's going to involve Rykard, Tanith, and the Hornsent. Okay, now before the DLC, all we had on Tanith was kind of like what came from those items we just got. She was a dancer from a foreign land, worked with like a dance that invoked, passion, but not necessarily sensuality, right, or attraction or anything like that. It was passion. That's all it was. And Rykard was enchanted by her, besotted by it, and that's when he decided to make her his consort, right? But she's from a foreign land, and with that, it's just like, it's not clear. It's like, okay, foreign land could be like the land of reeds, maybe the Badlands, right? There are other lands that exist outside the lands between, and it could also potentially imply that, a foreign land, meaning like he's from, say, the Altus Plateau, which is the heart of the Golden Order and the Erdtree, right? It could be that maybe she's from Liurnia as a foreign land, or maybe somewhere far to the south in the Weeping Peninsula or Caelid or something like that, right? So maybe that's what it meant. Or maybe even Eocade, because what do we find in the Shaded Castle? We find that there is Elimer of the Briar, who uses the arts of his homeland, Eocade, that use swords that dance through the skies, a dancing thing. I don't necessarily believe that part, because she seems to have closer ties more with like the Mirais family and stuff, who don't necessarily have anything to do with Eocade. Now, all that being said, DLC, we get the Shadowlands, right? The Gravesite Plains, all the sections that deal with the Hornsent and the Tower Settlement of Belorat. You get the Jagged Peak, all these other regions, right? The Highlands. And so I wonder if those are the foreign lands that she is from, right? Because in one hand, right, we get Eocade. Eocade is a land of solitary ascetics. What do we have? Ascetic like wrist guards and things that some of the Hornsent wear. But specifically for Tanith, right, there is a dancer that you fight. That dancing blade of Rana, decorative swords ablaze with impassioned red, wielded in both hands, used by the dancers of Rana. A furious dance performed by a succession of slashing attacks, etc., etc. But we go to, and actually I haven't really looked at the blade itself, right? Got like a forked into it, kind of hollow tip. Interesting. But then you've got the armor that you gain from it, the dancer's hood. Bright red hood of the Rana dancers. The dance of Rana is one of burning passion, and the most passionate dancers never allow their fiery dance to end, losing even their names as they dance on. To see the passion fade is to see the dancer's flame extinguished. So you see these things that involve dancing, and Tanith was a dancer from a foreign land, and I would largely consider these Shadowlands a kind of foreign land to the lands of the Erdtree. Now, there's a second thing about like why this maybe connects her and Tanith a little bit more, right? As a demigod and stuff with the Erdtree and Shadow of the Erdtree, it does pretty much show that, the demigods at one point, some of them at least, or went through the area, right? And so he was probably in their region, in their lands at some point where he saw her, right? And was captivated and took her as a consort. Now, she didn't likely have much of a choice. Now, why wouldn't she be captivated by him until he took the road of blasphemy and the blasphemous serpent? Because she comes from this land of the Hornsent, she doesn't care for the Erd Tree. And the Erd Tree itself did horrible things to their lands. It cast it away. It's the Shadowlands. America sealed it away, right? So she doesn't actually care for the Erd Tree. So once you get to Rykard and him taking the path of blasphemy, that's when she's interested, because she's like, oh wow, he actually doesn't care about it, and now she cares about what he has to say. And then with all the like twisting designs that we see in the Volcano Manor, the spells of the Hornsent involve those twisting heelless designs. You can see it in the background design there. See the single line with twisting seals on there. Sorcery of the Inquisitors, right? They resemble a barb, a symbol of coercive questioning. There's another one. I don't have the spell on this character, unfortunately, but you know, it involves things like that. So like it all kind of matches nicely, right? But of course, it's not a hard and true fact, right? It doesn't explicitly say it. This is just me connecting a bunch of pieces that seem to fit together and make this picture. I think in some ways too, if she comes from this, like, if she's connected to the house Mirais, maybe in his marriage to her, he pulled the entire noble family, because there were some like noble families of the Hornsent lands. He pulled them all with him, and then they got, you know, the governance over the Shaded Castle, where they were then just kind of left to do dirty work, but they were in essence a kind of nobility, right? And that could also explain why they wear these wrappings and stuff. If they're actually somehow related to Hornsent, maybe that's why they wear these masks and stuff, is to kind of like, you know, cover up what people wouldn't like to see. But also a lot of the different like races that I think kind of involve a bit more with the Hornsent also wear a lot of masks. And there's just generally masks across the board with the Tree Guardians, the Zamor Knights. You find it with the ascetics and the various Hornsent. This is just across, it's just across the world that you see these mask-like things. I also have this other thought that, you know, where I speculated that maybe the serpent kind of seduced Rykard into this idea of blasphemy and going against the Erd Tree. But what if it wasn't actually the serpent? What if it was, in fact, Tanith? Because he seemed to have more interest in her at first than she did in him, right? He made her his consort. She wasn't truly enchanted by him until he took the road of blasphemy. Maybe he took it kind of in essence to like please her. Maybe her talking about it eventually led him to that path, and that's what then got him there. I don't know. It's interesting stuff. I find it fascinating. But I've rambled on for I don't know how long. But we're probably just going to cut it there. I think I've probably forgotten something, and I feel a little awful for that. But I don't... There's just a lot. There's just a lot, and it's all very interesting to kind of think about and look at and stuff, right? So, cool things. I don't remember what I have next from here. I think it's some other stuff as my true character. We're going back to my actual character. He's progressing somewhere up and along in here, probably along in this section somewhere. But thanks for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I always appreciate it when you do check out the videos, and until the next one, take care.